fucking run it.
All right.
Is it live?
We're on.
This is it.
This is it. I'm going to turn the volume up a little.
Yeah, so we can hear better. Turn me up. That's what all the rappers say in the beginning of the songs.
That's what
Turn me
Leonard
up.
Skinner said.
Oh, well. Who's he?
Right.
Exactly. Okay, so I'm Pierre. You are?
I am Dana McClendon.
I just got to use the last name. I'm Pierre Kamel, and you're Dana McClendon.
Right.
And we're on the Figuring It All Out podcast.
That's right.
Oh man, we're gonna have to nail this intro down.
Okay, well, look, you're going to have to learn to edit, so you want to try it again?
No, for now we could leave it.
Okay. Because we should note that we are figuring it out in every respect. This is the second time we've recorded together.
Yeah.
We're still figuring out gear. I've just added a new piece of gear.
We've had 3 chair changes on my end.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, we have a matter of business we have to
No, I don't
attend
even,
to.
No. I don't even want to. Don't want to give them satisfaction. Not thinking about it.
You don't have to think about it.
I don't. Nope.
You're hurting me right now.
I know, but chess, not checkers.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
Oh man, this hurts right now. Dana,
Yes.
give us a rundown about your past, who you are, and how'd you get to be who you are.
Okay.
And for those who don't know, this is the Hotcrazymatrix.
I am the creator
Yeah.
of the Hotcrazymatrix
We'll get into that later.
and the consigliere to the Camden Mafia.
Terrorist
And the
mouthpiece.
terrorist
That's
mouthpiece.
my favorite. Terrorist mouthpiece.
I have to give credit to whatever left-wing publication it was that dubbed me that. So
Mr. Mouthpiece.
right. So I am currently 52 years old. I live here in Franklin, Tennessee with my wife. I have 2 sons. They are 21 and 23. They were raised in the house that we're sitting in. How I got here, I was born shortly before my father went to Vietnam. I was born in Norfolk, Virginia. He was shipped out of San Diego like all Navy personnel that went to...
If I can,
Mhm.
I would really like to sit your dad down.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
He'd probably think that was pretty cool.
He probably has a couple cool stories.
I imagine.
All right, so he goes to Nam.
He goes to Vietnam. He is a Lieutenant JG. He went to college on a Navy ROTC scholarship. His father had started a business just before my father went to college. So my grandfather started a business that exists in his name to this day, even though he's been dead for many, many years. Anyway, my dad paid his way through college on a Navy ROTC scholarship and had the terrible misfortune to graduate from college in 1968. My dad arrived in Vietnam in time for Tet and saw a lot of combat. Although he was in the Navy, he was in the Brownwater Navy. He was put in a PT boat or some of the small ribbed boats and did a lot of small arms fighting, mortars, 50 cals, that kind of thing. He came back, and my dad got an MBA, and a long journey of following my dad's career began. He was in banking in the 70s and 80s
When you say following your dad's career, you following your dad's career.
the whole family.
Okay.
Because he got
following, like moving around.
Yeah, he got promoted
Okay.
a lot. He stayed in the Navy in the reserves, but I honestly might have moved more with him being in banking than I might have if he'd stayed in the Navy.
When he got into banking, how old were you?
And I mean, I was a child.
Oh, okay. So 3, 4, 2,
Yeah.
3. Yeah. Okay.
So let's see, the places that I've lived. I was born in Norfolk, lived in Chula Vista, which is San Diego. Then lived in Columbia, Tennessee while my dad was in Vietnam. And then Columbia, South Carolina while my dad was in graduate school. Then Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Then Nashville. Then back to Winston-Salem. Then Hickory, North Carolina. Then Boca Raton, Florida. And then back to Nashville.
You've been under the Mason-Dixon for a long time.
I've never lived anywhere else. I mean, so I went to, let's see.
I just want to point out that I was like, it's a little win for me to be able to point that out.
What, that I've never lived anywhere
No,
else?
that I can Like just saying that line is kind of like
okay.
it's part of my
Acculturation.
Yeah.
Your acclamation.
Yeah.
So let's see. I went to, I don't remember, 2 or 3 elementary schools, a couple of middle and junior highs, and then I went to 3 different high schools in 3 different cities, including moving in the middle of my junior year. Middle of my freshman year of high school from one city to another where I knew no one.
So what did you? What do you think you took from all that?
I was naturally always the class clown,
To fit in,
which helped.
Yeah.
And I was a jock, so anywhere I went,
yeah.
I was.
Tell a joke and have a six pack.
Yeah, I don't know about a 6-pack, but I could. I could fight. I could roll. I could play football, whatever. So, as I reflect upon it, I then went to 2 colleges. I attended a number of colleges along the way, but I lived and went to 2. So I did not have a lifelong friend. I never did. And the ones that might have been that have either died, drifted away, or betrayed me.
Do you think would you attribute your ability to vet people came from that?
Yeah, I've had to be able to size people up real quick. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, some of that I think is
when you get older, obviously age plays into, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think some of that is innate, but yes, it's also a skill set that is developed. So, yeah.
The 2 colleges.
2 colleges. I went to the University of South Carolina as a freshman, and then transferred to the University of Florida for my sophomore, junior, and senior year, and then went to law school at Vanderbilt. And when I graduated from Vanderbilt, I got a great job at a great law firm in Nashville.
Let me pause you. I'm going to interrupt a lot.
It's all right. That's how it goes.
Why law school? Where did that come from?
It was a process of elimination.
So this decision was kind of made like after high school, before college, or was it made younger?
No, it was made by default, by ruling out the less desirable options, because I always did well in school. I got whatever grade I wanted to get based upon whether or not I found the teacher and the subject matter engaging. So it was a given in my family that you would go to college and that you would graduate from college. Both of my parents have MBAs, so it was not terribly far-fetched to think that I would get some postgraduate degree, or at least that it was possible. So as I got towards the end of college, I actually graduated a semester early, because once I started college, I stayed in college. I never didn't go to school.
Summer classes and extra stuff like that.
Took classes during the summer, went to Mexico for one summer for class. So as I got to graduating, my dad said, "What are you going to do when you graduate?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "Well, I'll tell you what you're not going to do. You're not going to Europe on my nickel, and you're not moving home." And I was like, "Rats." So that put the following things pretty much on the table. I could go to graduate school in a liberal arts, which I knew was a great way to go into great deal of debt without a great way to pay it off.
It's odd that however long ago you went to college, you knew this, and even nowadays it's still true.
Yes. I mean, some things never change.
20,
right?
30 years later.
You get if you get a graduate degree in a liberal arts, then you either wasted your time and money or you teach, pretty much.
Right.
I guess.
Or you're wasting somebody else's money.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't teach, I don't know what the point of it was.
Right.
Whatever. Nothing wrong with teaching, but it doesn't pay particularly well. So I was either go to grad school to get a liberal arts degree, didn't want to do that, or go to business school, and I definitely didn't want to do that. I hate math and finance math. Or it was get a job or go to law school, and I didn't want a job.
Why not medical?
Oh, I don't have
Oh, okay.
I don't have the
Yeah.
aptitude in
Yeah, yeah,
science for
okay,
that.
okay,
And I
gotcha.
didn't even, I mean, if
Yeah.
you want to go to medical school, you got to know that when you set foot on college campus,
Right.
if not
Right.
before.
So with what you had finished school-wise, with what you had graduated with, and what you were good and what you liked, this was it.
Law school became the least undesirable choice. And it just so happens that if
Yeah.
you go to law school, frequently you become a
lawyer.
lawyer.
Usually.
Yeah. Now, once I was in law school and I got the internships and the summer associate jobs and then ultimately the permanent job, there wasn't much doubt about whether I was a corporate transaction type lawyer or a courtroom
Yeah.
type lawyer. So I became a litigation attorney. Spent 5 years at a great law firm in Nashville, learning from amazing mentors who taught me not just how to practice law, but how to do it correctly. And then decided that I wasn't a big firm lawyer. Just didn't. I didn't want to have to be in an environment with dozens of people all competing for the same resources.
So knowing you, I feel like you're the kind of guy that appreciates structure and likes structure, but it's structure that you put up yourself.
Yeah, internal, like
Yeah.
structure I pick, not
Yeah.
structure that's imposed.
Yeah, like you don't have a problem waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning, but if someone tells you, "Hey, you got to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning,"
That's going to be different.
now
right?
it's a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
So left the big law firm, came down to Franklin, and started working with a guy that was awesome. Spent 5 years with him, and then went out on my own. I've been out on my own since 2002. Had a partner for a couple years, but I'm a lone wolf when it comes to hunting and gathering. So.
Okay, back to the structure thing. Where do you think you got that from? I mean, the obvious answer would be your parents, the way they raised you, and gave you enough freedom, but responsibility, or
I was a terrible kid. I fought with my dad constantly because my father is such a linear, black and white, step by step thinker. It's mind boggling.
It's quite amazing.
And he could not wrap his head around how my brain worked, because.
What about your mom?
Less like that, but still very organized and all that. But I resisted that at every step. Like part of the reason I went to prep school when I was 16, I left home and went to boarding school. And part of it was because I could not live with my parents anymore.
Is you?
Yeah, I went home one day and told them I got to go. I can't be here anymore. This has got to come down. I'm pushing way up.
Okay.
Gradually.
So, if people are wondering what we're talking about, audio.
Yeah.
Because we're still trying to figure this all out.
Still trying to figure out the audio.
I think we're doing pretty good for our second recording. I don't know what number this is going to be, but
yeah, we'll see.
Okay, so you graduate law school. Amy comes into the picture at one point.
Oh, I met Amy a week after I graduated from high school.
Okay, talk about that.
I was right when I graduated from high school is when my dad, shortly before I graduated from high school, is when my dad's promotion from Hickory, North Carolina to Boca Raton came through. So my dad was, he had taken the job and was he was the president of a big bank in Florida, and his headquarters was in Fort Lauderdale. So he set up shop temporarily in a condo on Deerfield Beach that the bank owned.
Yeah.
And so the summer after I graduated from high school, my choices were to go home and stay in Hickory, North Carolina, which I had desperately tried to get out of since the day I got there. I'd spend the summer there before college, or go down and stay with my dad in the beachfront condo. So I thought that over for a while, and it's a close call, I guess, but I went to the beach.
You told me the story a couple days ago.
And the day I got there, I got on a bike and I was riding around, and I'd never been anywhere like that. So I was riding my bike around. I was like, I think I'll get a job where I can meet some people my own age. So I just kind of riding around. I got thirsty. I said, I thought I'll just pop in this ice cream store that's opening up for the day, and get something to drink. So I pop into the ice cream store, and right as I walk in, I see the help wanted sign, and I walk in, and there's 3 prototypical beautiful Florida blondes setting up for the day, and I was like, okay. So got the job. I was scooping ice cream, and about a week later, Amy came in, and that was that. That was 1986.
Here we are.
That was actually what, 34 years ago, like this week.
Holy shit.
Yeah,
Big deal.
I guess. Yeah, it's been a while.
Okay, so we're going to come back to Amy
Okay.
and the wife in the 34 years.
Married 28.
Okay. I mean, we can talk about the Hotcrazymatrix thing. I think it's been covered, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's that would be your equivalent to a gear thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
unless you want to talk about it, like,
I don't have anything to add.
yeah.
I'm glad I did it. I didn't.
Right.
I didn't know what I was doing when I did it. If I had it to do all over again, I would do it.
Right.
I think it's funny. Hundreds of millions of people also think it's funny.
Okay. So, let's talk a little bit about like what your day to day is, and then we'll reverse engineer all that.
Okay, so
Unless you want to talk about the wife.
you're gonna have to ask specific questions about the wife if you want me to talk.
Well, let's talk about day to day, and then we'll go back to
Okay.
that. Maybe we'll jump around and.
So on any given day, I'm usually up between 6 and 6:30 with the dogs. Let them out. I make myself good coffee in a Chemex.
Mm-hmm.
I hand grind it,
Mm-hmm.
and I measure it out by grams, and I make 2 cups. And then depending upon whether or not I have to be anywhere, if I have to be somewhere, that would the only place I ever have to be is court. So depending upon which courthouse I'm going to, I will shower and depart for whatever travel that is. If it's Franklin, which is 90% of the time, I live 3 miles from the courthouse and I have a parking place. So, so I've got it down to where if I get in the shower at 8:00, I can walk in the courthouse at 8:40 without trying hard. And then I might be at the courthouse for 10 minutes, and I might be at the courthouse till the deputies throw me out in the evening. Just depends. All the time, every time, you will never see me without a phone and an iPad. A phone always, an iPad often. And because of the way I structure my practice, I work. If I'm awake, I'm working, and that it's not always obvious. Sometimes it looks like I'm dicking around on Facebook.
Yeah, but we've been working out multiple times, and you would just, I gotta take this.
Yeah, and
This is Dana,
right?
you know
And
what I
I
mean?
never know when the next
Right.
$5,000 check
Right.
is going to appear. I never know if it's going to
What do you think? What do you think? So one would say, like, ready for it? You've got it figured out, right? You can sound, because everything you've been saying so far has been very like, I want to do this. Like, I have to lose weight. I can put this, that, and the other. I can put the structure around me, and it's self-imposed.
Yeah.
What do you think attributed to, and this might kind of be maybe a bad question, but what do you think got you to this point now?
I have very carefully and deliberately curated the things that are helpful and productive, and shed the habits, the people, and the things that
Give
are
us an
not.
example. Like, how do you know what's good and what's not?
Okay. If it enriches my family, like the quality of our life, not the money.
Right.
Or if it helps make me money in a way that is worth making,
Right.
which may sound stupid or may kind of sound kind of snotty. I don't always make. I don't make all the money that I could.
Right.
Because some of it's not worth going and getting.
Right.
I'm lucky in that respect. I mean, when I was younger as a lawyer,
You're taking everything.
if you had $500, I was coming.
Right.
And now I'm not putting on a tie.
Experience,
I'm
yeah.
not putting on a tie if at least $1,000.
Was it you or was it who was it? I don't get out of bed for. That's you, right?
I'll get out of bed. I'll get out of bed. But I'm not leaving the house. I'm not putting on a tie
Yeah,
for less than $1,000
that's what.
in
Yeah.
hand,
Yeah.
check cleared,
Yeah.
Venmo cleared, cash.
We can go to work.
Yeah, and that's like a no brainer. Show up, make it go away on one day, like, and if it's not, so and I work up.
You're not
from
taking the local parking ticket.
there.
Yeah,
No, and
but you've done a lot of parking tickets.
oh man, I when you start,
You have to.
you do what
So
you can.
I've always said this. And so far I have yet to be proven wrong, right? Whenever you start, you have to be the bitch, and I say that like I say it on purpose, over the top like that. But like, you want to start in a shop, you got to sweep the floors.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, the first 5 years of my career as a lawyer,
you were doing what do they call it, circuit? What was it like? Were they court appointed?
no, I was lucky. I had a great salary at the law firm that I was
okay.
at, but
So after you passed the bar, you got into the firm.
I was practicing law at the firm before I got the results of the bar.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I took the bar in July of '93, and started at the law firm in August, and didn't officially become a lawyer who had passed the bar until my birthday in '93.
So it's safe to say you like to read.
Yeah.
Has that always been the case?
Yeah.
Even when you were younger?
Man, I read the 1972 World Book, like whatever it was, 36 volumes. I probably read 80% of it before I was in 4th grade.
Okay. So
It was in the
unpack that a little bit. Go down that rabbit
so
hole.
my when I was a kid in 1972,
Yeah.
5 years old.
I'm going to lead you specifically from that 4 or 5 year old age to the 10-year-old age.
Okay,
Tell me what happened, what
Well,
you
I
read,
learned-
what you watched, who you were around.
okay, I learned to read before I went to school by watching Sesame Street and
Okay.
The Electric Company.
Okay.
I could read a newspaper, although I couldn't understand the context of what I was reading. I could read the words.
Right.
Kindergarten, 1st grade.
Okay.
I mean, that's a gift that I've managed to exploit. Not
Right.
I mean, not something I take a great deal of credit for. But
You know, I have another buddy who's a lawyer, and he's pretty good. He's a great lawyer, and he talks about at a very young age, he was like, his family jokes like the experiment child. Like this, the neighbor lady would be like, "There's this new program to teach kids how to read. All right,
Well,
try it on him." You know what I mean? Like,
we had phonics,
yeah.
and I
So you're lucky
always-
in that sense that your parents thought ahead. Like, let's.
Well, it's what I mean. Look, I was about 11 before Atari came out. So
You didn't have a choice.
No, you know
You fell into it.
right when you got in a car to drive. When your parents put you in the car for 8 hours,
Yeah.
you could sleep, look out the window, or read.
Right.
That was
Right.
there were. I mean, I hate to sound like it was uphill both ways in the snow, but I mean, there were 3 channels of television.
Yeah.
If you were lucky, if you lived in a place that got reception, but
Yeah.
you had to actually like
Go
move
change-
the
yeah.
antenna around
Yeah.
and change the channel and stuff, and it wasn't on 24 hours a day, and
Right.
it was so. I read a lot, and
What's the first book you remember reading? Like.
I
Really,
remember
like-
reading Treasure Island when I was very young.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Louis Stevenson, and the Swiss Family Robinson. I remember reading those going to the beach one time, riding to the beach to Charleston to see
How old
my
were you?
grandparents. I don't know, 6 or 7,
Yeah.
8 maybe. But I was just a voracious reader. There was, when I was a kid, we had in the school, we had these color coded reading books that there was a box of them,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to go in order, and it you worked from easiest to most difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And partly because I have severe ADHD, and
Yeah.
partly because I love to read, and partly because I'm very competitive, I just crushed through those
Yeah.
things, right? Like, and everybody knew where everybody was reading and
Yeah.
everything. Now, I mean, I should quickly add that, like, I have some blind spots too, right?
Right.
Like I math for me ended at algebra 2. So like I'm not
You're not the numbers dude.
no.
Yeah.
I mean I can count money.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got your 5s, your 10s, your 20
Yes,
increments, 50
right.
You
Yeah.
got those down pat.
I can divide an hour
Mm-hmm.
by 0.1
Yeah.
in like
All the time.
instantly.
Yeah. And
That's
multiply by your
that's
rate.
by the way 6 minutes.
Yeah.
0.1 is 6 minutes.
So we run them, we call them, ready for it? Tenths.
Yes, right.
Yeah. Tenths, whatever. Yeah.
So I can but I do have. I guess maybe I got in the reading comprehension, writing, and articulation line 3 times, and the math line not at all, maybe. But
All right. So that reading,
yeah, and
you've
to
been
the
reading
next-
for a long. I mean, and even now, and to give you credit, you really huge influence on me into getting back into. Now we have to put up the air quotes, quote unquote, reading, because a lot of the stuff. I have 8 to 10 hours a day of standing and doing things that I can't have a book in my hand, and then I get home
Right.
and I used to read a lot. I used to when I was a lot younger. I used to read a shit ton.
Well, with the introduction of Audible
Right.
books, far more people have access
Correct.
to.
Right, but even now, like today, when I try and go home and read, like there's a few books that I have to, you can't listen to them. I just have to read them.
Right.
I have to. It's like if I'm laying in bed, and I can't go to sleep, I'll grab a book, and 4 pages in, I'll be snoring. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
so.
But I read these days. I probably read 1,500 pages a month of things I chose.
Yeah. Some
In the
heavy shit sometimes.
Huh?
Some heavy shit sometimes.
Sometimes. I mean,
Yeah.
I read. I don't read. I don't read spy novels or
Right.
action hero stuff. I read history. I read biographies, and I read literature.
Yeah.
So if you look at the bookshelf that's right over there, there's biographies of
For all of you
presidents.
guys watching, you can see the bookshelf.
Right, but I mean, on that bookshelf, for example, are a couple of dozen classic American literature books that you were at least supposed to read in high school.
How many people do you think are going to ask? Where's the video?
I don't know. And then biographies and history of presidents and
Right.
and wars, and then a little bit of like psychology and self-help type stuff.
All right. I've had a question that I've been wanting to ask you, so now we have to divert back to
Okay.
the unicorn. Give me
Amy-
just
Amy?
a general. You
The
know, what I mean? Like
original-
you guys, you guys been together for 30 some years. You said now.
Oh, yeah.
Just give me the
34 years.
the broad picture.
Roughly this week.
Yeah.
Well, we met when we were children.
Mhm.
I mean, I was 18, but she was not. I had just graduated from high school. She had just finished her junior year of high school. So,
What do you remember? What do you first thing you remember about her?
oh, she came in the ice cream shop where I was scooping ice cream, and she did that thing where she had her friend ask me,
Yeah.
do you like my friend?
Yeah. Of course.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and we hit it off and dated that summer. And
Mhm.
when I left that summer, I thought, okay, well, that was fun.
Yeah.
I went to,
There weren't cell phones where you could keep in touch.
no, there was no Facebook. There was no
No.
texting. There was no cell phones. It was like, you would have actually had to you had to have a way to pay for long distance,
Mhm.
which I didn't. I was living in a dorm.
Mm-hmm.
So
So how do you get rekindled?
we happenstance to be at the same party when I was home for Thanksgiving, maybe.
What's home at this point?
At this point, my parents were living in Boca.
Okay, so she's from Florida.
Yeah, she's from.
Okay.
She was born and raised in
Yeah.
the Palm Beach.
So
and
you're home
Broward
for a
County.
party,
I'm home and run across her.
and Amy comes in.
Yep.
How from ice cream summer till that party? How long?
I think that was like Thanksgiving.
Oh, okay, so a couple months.
Yeah, I mean that same academic year for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think at that point I made a point of staying in touch with her so that we would see each other again when I got home again.
Mm-hmm.
And then we dated the next summer, and then I would commute. We dated long distance when I was. At that point, I transferred to Gainesville, University of Florida, and I'd go. She was still living in South Florida, so I'd go home, see her. She'd come up, see me. We did that for a couple years. And then when I went to Vanderbilt, she followed me up here, and she finished college at Belmont.
For you.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah, we got married after my second year of law school. So
It's kind of a big deal, like up and move and transfer colleges and
yeah, I mean
you were in like that was
we were kind of orbiting, we would go through like being in the same town for a little while and then not, and then being in the same town for a while and then not. So
fast forward, right? You're here now.
Yep.
The reason I wanted to bring Amy into the conversation was, and hopefully it's not too much, but you said to me one time, I said, if me and Amy ever broke up, ever separated, because we always joke, you know what I mean? Like,
right,
hey,
yeah.
Dana, it's time to get a new model, and she
Right.
wants to punch
Right.
me. You know,
Right, yeah.
you know? So you said, if me and Amy ever split up, I'd only ever want one thing. Because I think I was asking you, I don't remember what we were talking about, but it was about like, Dana, you're going to lose a lot if you leave right now. You know?
You're talking about the Calphalon pot?
And you said, I want that pot. That's
Yeah.
kind of like, I was trying to build up to get to that point.
Yeah,
And
so...
have you unpacked that?
Oh, so...
And
when-
why?
Well,
You know what I mean?
when Amy and I... So this is... it's a little bit sentimental, but I'll confess that it may be mostly petty. When Amy and I got married, my parents threw us a big, giant Nashville society wedding. There were probably at least 200 people at my wedding I didn't know. And we had... We had registered at all the appropriate Nashville locations in Belmead. And so we were given an ungodly amount of china and crystal and silverware.
Things that really make a house a home.
Right? I mean, we've been schlepping that shit around for 28 years, and I don't think I've ever eaten off of it. I mean, it's beautiful.
My
and it's
mom has this
but
cabinet at home full of stuff that
it's downstairs.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
So,
I told Jess when we moved together, I said, if you ever fucking think about getting some shit that I can't eat off at any point that I like, and not like, hey, we made a good steak dinner, get the nice stuff out. Like, I want to put pizza rolls
right
on anything and be able to microwave it.
So, at the time we got married, my trajectory was big law firm, partnership track, Belmead, country club, entertaining,
Governor's Club,
blah,
all
blah,
that fun
blah.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Governor's Club didn't even exist, but you get that's right.
Yeah.
So it wasn't long before neither of us really wanted
To do that.
Yeah. So at the time it made sense, but we got given so much china and silverware and crystal that we kept a full set of everything. I mean, bread plates and china, coffee cups and tea spoons and you name it. We had 12 of everything, and we had so much additional shit that we took it back to get the stuff we wanted.
Right.
So we took it back and got store credit at whatever department store.
Yeah. Hudson's at the time.
I forget what it was. And we ended up going and taking like hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of expensive things we didn't need just to get towels and pots and stuff like that we could use. And one of the things we got was this really nice Calphalon saucepan. And we've had it since 1992.
Yeah.
And there is no telling how many, it's pitted and faded. And
right.
I mean, but there is no telling how many meals that Amy has made for me in that Calphalon sauce pot.
Right.
For 28 years.
Remember? So here's my point, right?
Right.
Yes, when we recorded the first episode, you told me to reflect upon food and my relationship with food and how it makes feed.
Right.
And I'm not trying to like, this is not me like digging at you or like this is somebody, and I'm going to pull my phone up just to, because somebody, Carson said it. Let me scroll for a second.
Well, I'll finish the story and then you tell me.
Yeah.
So I've jokingly said that if Amy ever decides she doesn't want me anymore, that I'm not going to haggle with her over anything. I'll just get new shit. But the one thing I do want is the Calphalon pot. Partly because of the sentimental attachment to it for all the meals that I've had out of it.
Right.
But mostly so that she can't make some other motherfucker a meal with that fucking Calphalon pot. You can have sex with my ex-wife. But
you
if
ain't
you think
getting
you're
my
eating out of
sauce.
the Calphalon pot, you can just go fuck yourself.
So Ryan said, I think I know you're going with the food, with the making other people happy with food, but you didn't quite get there, which is, I mean, the story of my life, trying to get a point out. It's not the food that makes people happy. It's the meal in the communal aspect. I enjoy my dinner because the food's good, but I also enjoy my dinner because I spend time with my fire crew because he's a fireman.
Right.
My wife, my friends, and he goes on to unpack
Yeah,
that a little bit more.
that's really what.
So that's what I think I was trying to explain.
Okay. Well, I understood that level,
Right.
but there was
Also
just
for
there was
me.
just a lot.
Yeah.
There was that 20 seconds was like the most profoundly
Yeah.
revealing.
For I could see that for you.
Yeah.
Looking out from the outside. in.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. 34 years is a long time.
Yes.
How do you figure that out? Because that's not just buy cheap and sell high and make
Right.
profit. You know what I
Well,
mean?
so a couple things. You have to pick someone who has got a gift for forgiveness, because you're not going to get very far.
Wow, that's
without-
powerful.
Yeah, you have to have someone who's willing to forgive you at least as often as you're willing to forgive them.
Do you think the forgiveness has to come from? Because one would argue there's a fine line between dealing with somebody's shit or loving. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, look, I'm not suggesting that you should inquire whether or not someone would forgive you if you stabbed them.
right. Okay.
But there are a million
Day to
big
day.
and little transgressions.
Right.
And if you allow them to accumulate, then they tend to multiply. And forgiveness is not an emotion. You don't feel forgiveness. Forgiveness is an act and a decision. And if you are not prepared to decide to forgive someone and then act in conformity with that decision, then I don't think you really understand what it is, and I don't think you really understand what commitment and love is. Love is also not, in the end, an emotion.
Correct.
It's also a decision and a series of actions
Yes.
and choices. And
I agree with that.
I mean, you can love someone. Sure, I love my dog. I love my mom. I
Right.
love my kids.
Right.
I'm not saying there's no such thing as love. I'm saying when you are in a relationship with someone, sometimes you just have to choose to love them. People are not always lovable.
I was waiting for you to pause so I could say sometimes you have to choose
Yeah.
them or to love. You know what I mean? I was
Right.
going down that same
Right.
path because.
And
Go ahead.
Yeah, if you, so it's an ebb and a flow. You know,
Right.
not every day is as good
For
or
as good as the
easy.
goods, as good as the good is, as
Right.
bad as the bad can be.
Right, and you also have to abandon the fairy tale of this soulmate stuff. I see people posting on Instagram about, oh, I found my soulmate. And I just want to crawl through the internet and tell them, no, you didn't. Because think about what a cruel world we would live in
Yes.
if whether you believe in a higher
Yes.
power or not.
Yes.
If there's a higher power, if you believe in a higher power, and you also are sitting out there thinking that
There's only
this
one
this
person. Yeah.
this wreckage of 1 or 5 or 10 relationships in your past was not your fault, all that really happened was that you had not yet found your soulmate, then I think you are naive and or potentially sociopathic, because you think about the cruelty of a world created by a designer, wherein the designer created one but only one soulmate for you. and then put you on a planet with 8 billion people to play the most elaborate and impossible game of hide and go seek ever. It's ridiculous. There are probably hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people that would be a perfectly good long-term mate for you if you'll just do your part.
Yeah. So go. I don't want to keep cutting. I don't want to cut you off because I the proof to me that there isn't a soulmate is my parents bought their house in 1999. And I think within a couple years of that, Jess's parents bought their home, right? Mid to late 90s, right? And we lived a mile and a half apart from each other for 15 years, 12 years. You know what I mean? Like never once. The odds of us driving across, you know what I mean, on this road, on the same road together is probably tiny, and we lived that close. And now
and never met,
and never met, and never crossed paths. And she went to a high school that was like a mile away from my house. Like never the same circle.
It's almost weird that you didn't.
Correct.
Or maybe you did, and you don't remember it.
Right. But I mean, like I have a really good memory. Like meeting people.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a million people you run.
Right.
You know,
and
you don't remember who was standing behind you in Publix today.
And to have. And how we met is the crazy story. Like that I'd like to. Are we late on time?
No.
You keep looking.
I pay attention to the levels.
Right. So.
Not that they change much, but
I'm just. So for us to have met and for us to be, like, Jess says to me all the time. She's like, you're joking. I love you. Do you love me? Blah blah blah. And my answers, for the last couple of years, has always been consistently the same. Is more than you know. And I hope she doesn't take it like she does, you know what I mean? She's a saint. She's awesome. Everybody that knows her knows, you know what I mean? Like, right. But it's not like she does something negative and because I love her, I say it's okay. That's not what I mean by more than she know. You know what I mean? It's like I have chosen to, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say worship.
Let me put it this way.
Yeah.
Sometimes
save me.
I would say to Amy, or she would say to me, I love you anyway.
Aha. That's a good, yes.
Right? Like,
yes.
Like, in spite of this annoying thing, or this mistake that you've made, or
right.
this transgression that you've committed.
Right. I still love you.
I still love you.
Right.
Right? Like, and that's, it's not always easy.
Yeah, Jess she says, I always love you.
Yeah.
And I was like.
Sometimes I just don't like you very much.
She's like, sometimes I just want to, like, rip your eyes out.
Yeah.
I was like, but you still love me then? And very reluctant. Yes.
Right. Don't push your luck.
Yeah. Don't play the game.
But I think the other problem with the soulmate concept is the idea that this person, whether it's one person or let's say that maybe there's 100 soulmates that would work for you. You just got to find one of them. I think the bigger problem, aside from the stupid math that can't work,
right,
is the idea that this other person exists to elevate your happiness and complete your life. And I
don't necessarily disagree with that.
I think that sets you up for failure in a lot of ways. One, it is your job to be happy. It is your job to arrange your life, make choices so that you are happy. And that includes who you admit to it and not. But the idea that you will somehow meet someone who will, to the exclusion of others, or better than everyone else, will finally unlock happiness for you. Man, that's potentially really troublesome.
Okay.
And not just because it's really up to you to do that for you, but also because no one can ever live up to that standard, right? Like, think about what that means. Oh, you're my soulmate. Okay, fine. Well, a month later, this soulmate does something human and disappoints you or hurts your feelings or commits some transgression against you. Do you view that in this soulmate prism? Do you view that as, oh, well, they're human and I love them anyway, and they didn't mean to do that, or maybe they did, but they've made amends and we've talked about it and they're not going to do that again or whatever? Or do you, which is the problem, quickly conclude, well, it turns out you're not the soulmate.
Right.
And so you discard them again. Instead of, you discard the last 12 soulmates.
Right.
Eventually you look over your shoulder and it turns out all these soulmates of yours, the first time they became human.
Yeah.
So this standard that you've got in your mind where they will always meet your expectations and complete you and elevate your happiness and blah, 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 that sets every real human being up for a
failure.
comparison that they cannot succeed in.
So let me jump in. Let's I hope every interview goes like this because I want to learn something from everything, right? So here's where the vulnerable Pierre comes out. You said you have to set yourself up for happiness. I'm going to go ahead and assume that you're saying you have to be happy, like everybody, like anybody that's in a really long relationship that's successful knows you have to be happy, they have to be happy, that makes you both happy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So
let me keep going.
Okay.
So we've been through some shit, we've done some stuff, we've had some hardships in life, you know what I mean? And I've worked very hard on always making sure that, like, the first thought in my head is, how is Jess going to react to this? And how do I protect her, shield her from it? How do I make
right.
sure
So
she's
you
okay?
have the capacity for empathy, which does not mean that, which is not incompatible with the idea that you should make yourself happy. So I can go out and provide for my family.
Right.
I can be emotionally available to my wife. I
Right.
can support her in her choices, and I can stand by her when she's having a hard time. I can do all those things.
Right.
All right. So I can set a stage in which she has every chance to be happy.
Right.
But ultimately, I cannot make her
Correct.
happy.
Correct.
Right? Now, if I come home drunk
Yeah.
with the smell of another woman on me
Yeah.
and slap her around and don't pay the bills and
Right.
make her life hard,
Correct.
yes, I am making it very difficult for her to find happiness on her own.
Right.
Yes, I'm not saying that someone else's conduct is irrelevant to your happiness, but
It is.
I can't make my
Yes,
wife
right,
happy.
Right. It factors, but one of these things that I have to work on, and I've, like, it's kind of like an aha, and this is probably one of the first times I'm probably going to talk about it, is like, I always try and put her first, which is good to a certain degree, right? Like, I should be
Until it depletes your batteries.
correct.
This is the oxygen mask theory.
Right. So, to be completely clear, I believe she always thinks of us first, thinks of putting me, you know what I mean? Like,
Sure, there's
Right.
you, her, and the team.
correct. So, the times where I'm doing good, this is not easy to talk about. The times that I'm doing good, I see us better.
Okay.
Right? Like, I see the relationship better. I see her happier, right? The times I'm not doing good, and I say to her, in like, I try and do something to make her happy, it gets a positive response, but you can, like, see it's different. It's just not, like, as
Yeah, well, there's
Right.
perfunctory acts, and then there's more what's the word? And then there's more sort of I don't want to say honest, but like natural acts
Right.
of service.
right.
You know, and it's the parable or it's the Christmas gift where she cuts off her hair and buys him a watch, and
Yeah.
he sells or what was it? He buys her a comb, but she's cut off her hair to buy him a watch or something.
Right,
It's
right,
like
right.
they both put the other one first, and now
Right.
while that was sweet,
Right.
now they both have a gift they have no use for.
So the last couple days, getting this going, doing a couple other things, like my head's been in a better place. I've been happier. I've been like today I was jacked up. You know what I mean? Mostly because I got, you know what I mean? Almost 50
feedback.
Yeah, almost 50 views on my podcast, my first episode, and like I was over the moon, right? And I kept refreshing, and you get that dopamine dump, right, or whatever.
The word you're looking for is validation.
Validation, right? But past that, I think 50 views or 100 views or 1,000 views, I think that that only gave me so much. There has been a handful of people that reached out and have said stuff like deep, truly like caring, like listen. And we're going to talk about this later at a future episode, but like bop, 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 point.
So I think there's a couple things. One, I think in a strange way, this recording these thoughts and feelings with just me here, but then putting them out there is it's interesting because it's a vulnerability and then a connection that comes back when somebody comes back and says,
Right.
oh man, and I think it also is people crave authenticity in a world where you can pick your phone up and see completely false, curated,
Right.
heavily
Right.
edited, narrated versions of people.
Right.
There's a real thirst for authenticity.
So I would normally start this next statement with whatever it may. What's the word? How do you say it? Like for whatever it's worth, right? Normally, I would say, for whatever it's worth. In moving forward, I've worked my ass off to not lie, to not be like if I say something, I want people
Right.
now. I have said I was going to lose weight in the past and haven't. I have said I'm going to do this, and you know what I mean. Like I've faltered, right? But if I say, if I say, this is what I said or this is what happened. It in my brain that's what it is, right? So with that said, I don't think we plan on, or even up to this point, 2 episodes, right? Like this is no different than any conversation we've ever had.
Right. This is the riding to Camden conversation.
Yes,
that we've had.
yeah, and
We're just letting other people listen.
yeah, and that's kind of where the vulnerability on my end is, right? Like because I don't know how to. If I wanted to fuck somebody over, I wouldn't know how.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Like,
right.
I'm too pure. Like, I almost wish, like, I grew up, like, just a little bit more in the hood. And you know what I mean? Like, I could...
I think certainly environment has something to do with it. But I think there are people who grow up with every comfort, luxury, opportunity, everything, who never tap into anything authentic within themselves.
Right.
And they spend a lifetime masquerading as something they're not.
Oh,
And sometimes they do that because they don't even know what they are.
Right.
But then I think that there are people who can access that much more easily.
Like me.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you are choosing to put it out there in this way.
Yeah, I don't...
because you probably wouldn't stand in front of a room of 50 people and share these things in this way.
No.
Right? And
No.
yet, by this time tomorrow, it's maybe 100 people will have heard episode 1. And yet you would not stand in front of 100 people and share those stories and those thoughts and those feelings.
Yeah, because I'm not talking to 100 people.
Right. But
I'm talking to you.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
It's weird how the technology
Right.
actually, in this case, serves to access that for you.
So here's where
Whereas you would think that the two of us just sitting here with these mics and then putting it,
Right.
in ones and zeros and
Yeah.
shooting it out into some,
Right.
space cloud thing, that wouldn't be that way. And yet you're taking value from it because you're making a connection with people at a level and in a way that you probably wouldn't and couldn't in person.
Yeah. I think there's two Pierres, right? One of them, he comes and goes. He's not the good Pierre. And not the good Pierre is not that, I don't turn into a werewolf and go like on a murder rampage, right? Like,
Right.
It's just the inner struggle that everybody has, right? And certain things have been done to defeat him. I don't want to use the word defeat, but like either change him for the better or get rid of him, right? And I think doing this, how we're doing it, like
It's therapy by podcast.
it's therapy by podcast, but it also like it's setting up, like, this is what it is. And this is probably one of those times where Pierce shut up, but like you're getting people invested. Like, this is who I am.
Right, but you told me before we hit record
Yeah.
the first time,
Yeah.
I don't care if anyone listens.
I don't.
But I think but
To the point of like, I don't care. Like, if someone comes up and says, somebody's negative reaction towards this is not going to affect me.
no, because someone who would, if someone doesn't like it, they should just cut it off. If
That's
someone goes to the effort
To say something
to
negative,
say something negative,
That's
then,
cool.
Well, no, I mean, if it's constructive criticism, which, by the way, the bandwidth for constructive criticism is extraordinarily narrow.
right?
People say shitty things all the time,
Right.
and call it
Right.
constructive criticism.
Right.
Sometimes they're just being shitty.
Right.
The person who would use your
Vulnerability.
vulnerability as a weapon
Right.
is a
This is a
weak
piece of shit.
coward.
Yeah. And they're not going to add anything from my life, and they're not going to take anything away.
No.
When Jason says to me, "Hey, dude, I couldn't hear it on my phone, so I had to put it on the big TV to turn it up,"
Right.
that's good constructive criticism.
That's constructive criticism.
Right.
Right.
When other text messages I've gotten, like, it's the most revealing
By
one.
the way, we turned it up.
Yes, just for you, Jason.
Right.
Dana bought more gear just to.
Well, sometimes the solution is gear.
So when
I could not mindset additional decibels.
Yeah. When true. When Josh says, "Look, motherfucker, I want to make fun of you, but I can't."
Right.
And you're gonna and there's part of my brain, and this is the lower self-esteem, where it's like, oh man, some of these dudes, like, hey, it's a good podcast. Some of these guys are just gonna be like, yeah, okay, it's a good podcast. But there's a handful of people that I when they speak, I just listen, and a lot of it was like,
Well,
it wasn't just like, hey, good job. It was like, this is why this is good.
I
This
think
is why
it's-
this is good.
I
This is why
think-
this is good.
So, like, I think that as a parallel or as an analogy, I think one of the reasons that 12-step programs work is because you're in a room with people who are
You relate to
letting you see the real them and the worst version of themselves, and not being judged for it, and not being, torn down for it, and being lifted up for it. I think embedded in the human DNA, setting aside narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths,
Right.
Embedded in the DNA is the need to connect, and the need to know that what you're experiencing is, let's say, normal,
Mm-hmm.
or is a shared experience.
So to keep going, are you done? I'm sorry.
So I think
This is something I have to work on, is not cutting
the
people off.
feedback loop that happens here, where
Yeah.
you record, you say something,
Yeah.
you put it on the
Whatever.
the cloud, and then someone that you do or even don't know
Comes in and says,
comes in and says, and they may not say it this way, but a lot of times, if they listened, then there was a connection.
correct.
Now they may go
They may not be willing to open up and be like, look, I
me
did.
too.
Yeah.
Right. So
right.
if they do, then you've closed the loop on
Right,
that
right.
in a way that 1,000 years ago we'd have been sitting around a campfire,
Right. Or
You
not
know.
even talked about it.
or well, whatever. I mean,
Right.
but this is the modern day campfire.
There's something I want to ask you about. I don't know if you want to talk about it.
If I don't, I'll just say no.
Do you want to talk about? We'll try and keep it cryptic. What we said a couple days ago about. I think we were driving out to Camden. Your motivation, your ease of motivation, like you got thrust into this thing that like forced you to lose weight and work out and all this other stuff.
Oh, you mean the having a heart attack?
Yeah, dying.
Oh, sure.
Well, okay, so elevator pitch, I guess, on what
Oh,
happened.
okay. So
For those that don't know,
So when I was 42, I realized that I had let myself get fat. I didn't know that. I went in my closet and put on a pair of pants that I'd worn many times, and they didn't fit. And I thought, wow, that can't be good. And I thought, I'm not vain, but I'm not going to go buy bigger pants at 42. So I decided I'd get in shape. And in my mind, I was still the athlete that I always was. But the athlete that I always was had been sitting at a desk for
yeah,
15 years or something. So, so I was in worse shape than I thought. But I started and I struggled, and I went to the gym and I lifted one day and I rode the bike the next, and I had some, improvements, lost some weight, changed the way my body looked a little bit. But 6 months later, I went on vacation with my family, and I woke up having a heart attack. And I knew I was in trouble. I could feel myself fading. And my wife was watching while the paramedics worked on me. And wound up in the cath lab, and they were working on me and putting stents in and whatnot, and I coded. And I was flatlined for about 5 minutes. They had to shock me 4 times, which apparently is probably at least one more than normal before they call it. So I woke up not dead, and it really sort of turned a lot of things inside out for me. They talk about, people say that, oh, well, he had a heart attack and his personality changed. I don't think my personality changed, but I definitely think that my perspective on the value of certain things, and what is worth being afraid of and not, was turned completely upside down. So, for example, the day before I had the heart attack, I would have said that I was afraid of being divorced.
mm-hmm.
The day after the heart attack, I would have said, maybe not the day after. It took a while for the pieces to kind of sort out, fit together like Tetris. But at this point, I can look back and say that the experience was that I was no longer afraid of being divorced. I was afraid of not being happily married. So when you turn a fear inside out like that, suddenly your choices are different.
You could do a lot of work to not get divorced versus doing a lot of work to have a happy marriage.
Right. And also, if you say, I don't want to be divorced, well, that's noble. But it also sets you up potentially for a lot of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you say, well, whatever, if you sort of say to yourself, whatever happens, I don't want to be divorced,
Mm-hmm.
then you might not be willing to make a move that's good for you,
Correct.
or good for your family, or whatever. So when you turn it inside out, another example would be, instead of being afraid of failure,
Mm-hmm.
I became immediately afraid of not having taken the chance to succeed. So in the wake of the heart attack, and this is not, I was not conscious of these changes at the time. I am in retrospect. But at the time, I became not selfish, maybe selfish, and impatient.
So that's the word I struggle with all the time.
Selfish?
Yeah, because in my brain, selfish is a negative thing.
Well, and it can be.
I've always, but it's to me, it's like the extreme of.
Well, I would say that you don't want the selfish knob turned to zero either. Like
I would say,
like on a if the knob
0
is
to
0 to
10.
10,
Yeah.
you don't want to constantly be turning your selfish knob
Yeah.
to zero, because then
Right.
you get that. I mean, taken to its
Right.
illogical extreme, that literally means you get nothing you want.
Right.
You are always
Or you
subordinating.
turn it up and you get everything you want for a short period of time, and then off,
Yeah.
and then
So
yeah.
neither end is good. Neither
Right.
extreme is good. But I became, I would say, selfish and impatient, and not in the sense that I was shitty to a waitress, but in the sense that I was like, look, I don't know if I get to live another 24 hours or 24 days or 24 years. So I want the things that I want now. And if you're down for that, and if you want to get in on that plan, great, get in on the plan. And if you don't,
Great.
then step off.
Right.
So it was a difficult period of time, particularly in the marriage, because, my wife's reaction to the thing was she watched me die. And so her response to that was, to turn, to want to sort of bubble wrap me,
Mom mode.
right,
To
and
the
like
nth
protect me,
degree,
and
yeah.
right, and like and I was like, fuck it, I want to go jump out of a plane. I literally, the cardiologist literally had to like cancel me from jiu-jitsu. I was like, I lived, you fixed me. What do you mean? Why are we waiting 60, 90 days for,
Right.
any of that? So, it was not easy, particularly when you're not aware of the shift until later.
So
That said, since then,
yeah.
I have made it a priority, and I mean, I've said this to people, and they think it's maybe morbid, but I'm making choices now that I'm turning the dial as much as I can, all the risk factors that I can, within reason. I mean, I still like to drink beer and eat pizza and chicken wings now and then, but I don't want, Amy's not going to watch me die again. I have to outlive her.
Right. So the conversation we kind of had was like, I don't want to say it's, I wish I was, like, this is one of those moments where I really wish I was more eloquent, but it's almost easy, right? And help me with the words here, to say like, hey, like, you've been through this unbelievable experience, right? Like your motivation, your purpose, your want, your drive, all of those all those cylinders are over full forever, right? Like you're gonna either roll over and die, figuratively and physically, or you're just gonna be like, look, this is your depth perception, you know what I mean? Like is right here right now. It's right in front of your face. So
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not trying to sound like
do you mean like why do I live the life that I live now?
But it's very clear why you do it.
But I think at some point it just becomes habit. Like as far like I train
today, but today it's habit, right? But coming from that traumatic experience, nothing was a habit, right? So that drive to
not die
again,
yeah,
right? Which, spoiler alert,
didn't die
didn't die, right?
Yet.
Although
I did
sort of.
my heart did briefly stop again.
Yeah.
Last year,
but that's
whatever.
That was a Tuesday. It's no big deal,
right?
But my point is, like, you've now made it a habit. But for people that struggle sometimes, and when I say people, I say me, with like purpose or fulfillment, or you know what I mean. Like, you had a wife and a kid. Like,
yeah,
it speaks to your character.
I came very close to leaving a 42-year-old widow with a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old son.
Right. So now, I'm not saying what you're doing now you couldn't have done before, right? Like
Yeah.
What really changed? Like just everything in your head.
Yeah, I mean,
Somebody didn't come up to you and say, "Hey, look, Dana, you're a great lawyer, but I saw that you died here on your resume, so I'm going to give you another $100,000 a year."
no, nobody did that.
Right.
In fact, it was not really the opposite, but one of the things that, so I had the heart attack on a Monday night. I spent Monday night and Tuesday night in the hospital, walked out of the hospital on Wednesday, drove home on Friday, went to the gym on Saturday, and went to work on Monday. So under 7 days from 5-minute flatline to back at the courthouse. And I mean, that was a choice because when I say I went to the gym, I sat on a bike and pedaled it slowly.
Yeah.
But I could not afford to have people abandon me as clients
Right.
for fear that, my lawyer's going to
weakness.
die.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I couldn't just have people call me up going, I'm going to need that retainer back, or the phone stops ringing, or, people.
You had to double down.
Right. So I could not afford to have people perceive that I was not capable.
So before the heart attack and after the heart attack, with that being the timeline split, would you say, and I'm not trying to say financially, and I'm not saying, you do the same thing for long enough, you just eventually get better.
Right.
Let's say, 2 years before, 2 years after, or whatever, would you say you became, however you want to, whatever metric you want to use, more successful after?
Well, I mean, if you just measure revenue,
that being easy, but
not because, yes, but I don't think it had anything to do with the heart attack.
Fulfillment. How about fulfillment?
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to get
Yes.
at. I'm not trying to say money-wise.
Yes, because
Different perspective.
The idea of not being around to watch your kids grow up,
right.
when it is no longer a theoretical and remote possibility,
Right.
but rather one that you actually
It's easy for me to say
through.
I could, driving from your house to my house, I can get
right. So you
struck by lightning 14 times.
Right. But when it actually happens,
Right.
it's sort of, I remember very clearly a lot of the things that happened that night. And one of them was that they had cut my shirt off. So I knew I was getting in the bus. They had never cut your shirt off and don't take you in the ambulance.
I got my shirt cut
If
once
your
and
shirt
put in the
gets,
bus.
he will never ever walk away from getting your shirt cut off. You're going to the hospital. So
Write that down, people.
Yeah, they cut my shirt off and they put the telemetry on me, and I was fading, and I could feel myself slipping away. And this I say old, the guy was probably my age, but like a vet, fireman, paramedic, EMT guy, was working on me, and I was laying in the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And there were like 4 or 5 of them zipping bags and getting shit out.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
The energy level for them was kind of going up because by then it was pretty clear that I was slipping. And I remember I said, "Don't you fucking let me die." And he said, "I got you, brother." I said, "Okay." And I rolled my head to the right and looked over that shoulder. And as a background to this story, you need to know that my wife's father died when she was 12. Cancer.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he died of cancer. She's the youngest of 4 daughters.
Mm-hmm.
They ranged from 12 to 17 when it happened, and it was a prolonged, debilitating death. So they watched.
Yeah.
So I and Amy and I met. That happened when she was 12. We met when she was 17.
Yeah.
Been together since. So I rolled my head to the right, and my wife was standing in the corner with her hands clasped to her face, like you involuntarily do when you're horrified. And all I could see was a girl, 12 years old, watching her dad die. And I looked at that firefighter and I go, "Don't you let me fucking die." And he goes, "I got you, brother." And he goes, and then I remember he said, I got to get some atropine in you. And I said, okay. And then I thought, Pulp Fiction. I was like, wait, how are you going to do that? And he goes, I got an IV in. I'm like, oh,
Okay.
okay, go ahead. Because I thought, like if he's going to whack me with the damn, whatever giant needle, that I'm going to need to like at least think about that, like be ready.
Thank you for sharing that. Honestly, that's kind of deep, right? But if I can, while a very powerful story, my takeaway for me is I shouldn't have to wait till I'm on a bed.
And this is what we were talking about. This is what is your why?
Yeah.
If you don't put your finger on a why that's big enough.
Correct.
Right.
And when the why is slammed on the lap.
Right. When the why walks up and
right.
and threatens to drag you off to,
right.
to Never Land forever, then you don't have to go find it. In that sense, I was lucky that the why came and found me.
Right. That's a great way to put it. That's the point I'm trying to, like, the why came and found you.
Yes.
Right.
I don't know what might have happened if I had to go find it.
Right.
Clearly, I had not found it by January of 2010. I mean, I've got a picture of me. My wife and I happened to go to the Keys in October of 2009. And we hired a guide and we went tarpon fishing. And I've got a picture of me with this beautiful tarpon.
I think I've seen that picture.
And I used to look at that picture and think, God, what an amazing fish. And now I look at that picture and I think, Jesus Christ, no one told me I was that fat.
Yeah.
Right? And not that I'm like some specimen today, but I'm a very different animal today than I was then. I'm
6'1", 320 pounds, and I feel like you could whoop my ass.
Well,
I mean, to be fair,
I have spent a long time improving myself. So, but if you don't, like, I clearly had not found my why.
Correct.
By the time I went and caught that tarpon.
So your why gets dumped into your
right.
In your chest.
Right. And you can either send it away as though it didn't.
But this is what I want to talk about. This is, you come out of this.
Mm-hmm.
And the big gross movement that you did afterwards, almost sounding like within 5-6 days, almost immediately, was you turned the selfish meter up.
Yes, I did.
Okay,
and not without consequence.
Correct.
But yes.
So maybe, right? And this is, I mean, I'm not a therapist, so this is not what we're. So
neither
maybe,
am I, but I play one on TV.
Right. So maybe you turned it up too much.
Probably.
Which, given how big the why was, it's understandable.
Right. If I could go whisper in my ear now.
Hey, dial it back a degree or two.
Turn it up,
right.
But not like that.
Now, I wish you wouldn't have said that, because now he's going to run me down a different rabbit hole. But let me say this to that, though. I feel like you and Amy have an amazing relationship. When I say amazing, I mean like there's some foundation there, right?
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's been there's things that have happened, whatever. I'm not getting into that. My point is, you are the kind of people that when you come out of something, you get stronger.
Well, but you
have to work through it.
Well, you don't get a playbook, right? Right.
Yeah.
So if I had it to do all over again.
Hold on, you said playbook, and it sparked something.
If I had all of that to do over again, and I knew then what I know now, I would have really consciously challenged myself and Amy to turn towards one another. Even if I was going to turn the selfish meter up and do stuff for myself,
mm-hmm.
I would, if I had it to do all over again, I would be very deliberate about turning
inwards
to us, because that's, I think, where you can lose the relationship. If your instinct and impulse is to turn in, you'll probably weather
storms
better. If your impulse and instinct is to turn out, then you're going to be exposed to bad outcomes.
I will say this about, and this is not swinging comparison or anything like that, right? Like, as a positive thing, me and Jess haven't been through something traumatic like that, right? Like I had a heart palpitation thing or whatever, and yeah, whatever. But there have been a few things that have happened, right? And I feel like we do that very well.
Well, and that's, I mean,
The turning in.
if it's not an instinct for you, then it needs to be a decision for you.
It's an instinct,
Right.
For both of us.
And when you have two people whose instinct is to rally
Yes.
towards one another,
Yes.
that's great.
Like I love my parents. I love my sister. She has, you know what I mean, like her family and our friends. But like, I truly, without a shadow of a doubt, believe, like, it's me and her, right? Like, and I've worked on helping her, you know what I mean, get to that kind of point, and she's helped me a lot. And we probably have a couple episodes worth of Jess and I type stuff, but
I hope so.
yeah, oh yeah. But I say all this to kind of out loud say a reassurance of like one of the big lessons you took from this was turn the selfish thing up, which ended up making maybe the knob went a little bit too far, right?
Oh, yeah.
And maybe you should have turned in a little bit more than you did, right? So
Yes.
cool. These are lessons that you learned
Right.
that I'm hoping that are implemented now, which is very obvious that they're implemented now, right? But that gives me like okay, we turn in, right? Now I need to turn the selfish meter up. Because like when like a stupid small example is like Jess would get up and work, like Jess worked like just as consistent with her working out, and it's like, hey, come work out with me, and I'll be like, you know, I give her some fat guy excuse, and she's just like, okay, I can only push so much. You have to get here,
Right.
but you're not gonna affect me. You're not gonna.
And that's an appropriate level of selfishness for her.
Correct. So I have to get to an appropriate level of selfishness.
Right.
For me.
Yep.
Heavy. How long?
122.
I think this is a good place to.
Wrap it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, lesson of the day. Turn the selfish meter up a little bit.
Keep your finger on it.
Keep your finger on it.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got to be the smarter one.
I mean,
All right.
keep your finger on it. Don't pay attention.
Thanks
what
for
I would say.
listening.
Yep.
And
Next time.
next time we'll figure it out a little bit more.
Okay. As our friend John Willis says,
Cut that shit off. I get to say it on this one. Cut that shit off.